Still Team Human with heart, empathy, and love. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Still Team Human. I'm your host, Francesca DiMeglio. This is where we discuss how to keep people at the center of our work, even in the age of AI and other advanced technologies. This is where we elevate the human and understand how people can ensure the new world fits around their best interests. Wayne Butterfield is our guest today. He is the founder of the business consultancy STX and a global leader applying artificial intelligence into business operations. Today, he is here to talk to me about human first AI. Hello, Wayne. How are you?
I am great. Thank you, Francesca. Thank you for having us. And I love the background that you have there. It's great.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to have you as well. We know each other from back in the day when I was working at PEX Network and HR Exchange Network. And I really thought you would be relevant to the topics we're discussing here on Still Team Human. And my first question to you, because I'm really uh, grappling with this whole idea of human first AI, how would you define it, and what does human first AI look like in practice?
Uh, Great. So it's d definitely a topic that I've been thinking about and talking about for a lot of time, right? So I've been involved in AI now for over 15 years, and in the world of AI and automation, and I spent plenty of time going around some of the world's biggest organizations, helping them deploy this type of technology. And the more and more this technology became mainstream and started to be deployed, the more and more the consequence of the technology being deployed was that the people, the workers, were being displaced, either by reduction in recruitment or job losses. And if you
Yeah.
look at the news nowadays, all you see every other day is some big layoff now, whether it's attributed to AI directly or indirectly. And so, human AI for me is has always been how do we augment, add to, provide superpowers to our human workers, and instead of going profit, we try and make the entire human race more happy, right? Some people do like their work. I love my work. Does that mean that I don't want a 3-day weekend, or it doesn't mean that I don't want to be, having more free time? Absolutely not. I love my job, but you know what? I love being human, and doing things outside of work, as much, if not way more. And I just think that the world could be a happier place if we used all of these productivity gains in order to make everybody happier rather than worrying about their role.
I think that's a really interesting perspective because here in America, the culture has not been about making the people happy. It has really been driven by, there's almost this belief that you are not a good person, even if you're not, working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there's something wrong with you. And so I think this is really going to be a mentality shift that we'd have to take on. And you mentioned these companies, that are laying people off. I can say I believe I indirectly lost my job because of the situation with AI as an editor and writer. There's no question that there's more editing and writing being done by the machines, especially when it comes to marketing and general writing. So. How do you think companies can truly build a human first AI um, organization if profit is what's driving them?
hmm Well, I think it's a great question for a couple of reasons. The first one is, if you actually look at a lot of the research, now, I guess there's a few types of organization. There's those that are using the saving generated through higher productivity with AI, as a cost saving, right? So they are taking that cost saving. They are the same business run with fewer people. And that's one way of looking at this. Um, I was reading a post by a comment actually by a guy called Phil First, who's the CEO and founder of an analyst firm called Horses for Sources or HFS. And his point in this particular post was very permanent to this particular answer, is that there were three other things that you could do with that saving instead, right?
Mm,
So you could reuse that capacity to either do something new. Okay. So look at new opportunities to
right.
increase revenue, right? So you don't decrease your costs, you increase your revenue, therefore you hopefully make more profit without losing your people, right? So that's kind of number one. Number two, was number two. So that was number one. Number two was that you do stuff now that you were unable to do before, right? Because now you have new capacity. You didn't have enough people. It never made sense to hire people to do these new things. And again, it's all about likely revenue and new opportunity. I can't remember the third one, but the point is there are two ways to deal with the opportunity that AI is presenting. One of them is cut to greatness. No company ever really does that, right? They're
Right.
basically surrendering to the fact that they are they are on a slow death, in my view. They're
Okay.
trying to cut to greatness. It's not going to happen. They are in their swim lane, and other organizations instead will start to innovate more. They'll start to use AI with their people. They'll take all of the greatness of the people, and they will be more successful businesses. Does that deliver 4-day weeks and other things? Maybe not in the short term, right? But those businesses will be more successful by reusing those savings to improve revenue than they will be to cut costs, right? That's my view, right? It's not what it is a mentality thing of how do you approach um, the impact of AI, and it's going to be on an individual business by business basis, right? But you're already seeing it, right? And I'll tell you some great another piece of research that I just read very recently. So the writer did a survey of, I want to say, about 2,500 people, and they found that 1 in 3 individuals are actively sabotaging the AI efforts of their company because they are so worried about what those impacts are going to be.
Uh,
It's like, that's not a good thing, right? It's like
oh,
it's poor change management. It's poor communication. It's mistrust, right? It's so many negatives associated with that. 1 in 3 of those people are highlighting actively sabotaging because of that lack of trust in the company that they work in their use of this type of technology. So, there are, and the last thing I want to add on this one as well, just to really ram home that point, that this is a major issue, and the organizations are going to have to do something about it, is there's been two instances recently where AI has been brought up in speeches to do with people graduating in universities across the US. And both times, the students in place booed the use of AI and how transformational it is. And do you know why? Because it's their jobs, their future jobs, that they are worried are not going to be there because
oh,
organizations are using AI instead. Right, that is not a great place to be. You've got people already in the workplace actively sabotaging. You've got people who need to enter the workplace incredibly worried about where the hell they're going to get their first job from. And the problem is they are going to be some of the biggest contributors to the global economy in the next 10, 15, 20 years. And if they're not joining the workforce, where is our next, work work is going to come from. There's just
Yeah.
too many social problems that are going to happen as a result of this. Um, and so we've got to change the mentality, and we've got to do it quick.
Yeah.
And people will say, "Ah, we've been here before. We've been here before. We had the Industrial Revolution. We had PCs, we had Excel, we had all of these things." Do you know what? The speed at which those things delivered is significantly longer than what we are experiencing right now. And I'll give you one example. When the when we electrified the factory, and this is what people talk about the Industrial Revolution, when we electrified the factory, it took 30 years from electricity to be here and for factories to actually be changed and their workflows change and to really truly take advantage. That was 30 years. We would be lucky if we had 10,
Yeah.
5. There's actually the latest commentary from the CEO, I think it was, of Microsoft AI, is that he gives 18 months before most white collar roles could be displaced.
Yes.
18 months.
And they're already talking about this is why the undergraduates at these graduations are up in arms. They're already talking about the fact that many are not hiring for those entry-level jobs because they found that AI can do them. And with
Hmm.
that, there's so much about that that is problematic for society. Aside from the fact, as you mentioned, we're not going to be building up a workforce and we're going to need people to work.
Hmm.
The older generation will die. That's what happens. And you're going to have to replace them with somebody. The other part of it is also the personal ramifications. I mean, the lack of socialization, the isolation it could cause, the fact that people won't be meeting at work and getting romantic and making babies. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into that. As someone from Italy, where the population is dwindling, uh,
Hmm.
that comes into my head too. We don't think about that much in the United States, but those are all things that could come into play, 20, 30 years down the road if things don't change now. Another thing that you were mentioning, though, about how the companies, should come up with a different plan and maybe instead of cutting costs, they should think about investing and figuring out about the people. I wanted to mention a friend of the podcast, Doug Shannon. He always says, don't hire, as basically have your budget for workers also, rather than laying people off, have a smarter budget for who you need to hire and don't hire in the first place. Consider AI as a collaborator. I think more of that will be happening too. And maybe that's a way to keep people in the mix. I wanted to ask you, though, I know customer experience maybe might not be your area of expertise, but there was a lot of news about this, and I covered this for my previous employer a lot. Obviously, it was very fast between, generative AI coming on the scene and then agentic AI and the AI being able to work without a customer experience representative, a human one, taking on the role. And many companies did replace their CX network with the bots and replaced the humans. And there's a lot of backlash to this now. Do you think those companies are going to be forced to reverse their decisions or bring more people on? Because a lot of people do not seem to like it. I myself included, I had a bad experience. I tried to call for a mechanic twice. I was told by the AI, someone will call you back to schedule the meeting. I could never get a human on the phone, and I actually had to go to the place to get an appointment only, which really defeats the purpose and seems
Hmm.
antiquated in this day and age. So, what do you think is going to happen with these companies that have already taken this big step of replacing people with machines?
Um, Great question. I got a multi-point answer here. Okay, so there are companies who have attempted to pretty much replace their entire customer services department. The biggest example is probably Klarna.
Yeah.
financial services organization, replaced 700 staff, and then now has been actively recruiting on the down low because they realized that AI could not do the role of their people. There are other examples there that are probably not as extreme. The interesting stat that I'll bring up is if you actually look at the amount of hiring in the contact center, it's actually up. Contact center hiring is actually higher than any other department right now. So,
Right.
whether that is as a result of AI and the negative impact of AI and people reversing, is I don't know, but I do find it fascinating that a role that is so well documented as being at risk is actually experiencing one of its highest ever recruiting phases. So there's got to be something in it. There's something that doesn't smell right when that happens, which is very, very interesting now. Um, there's another role which is not customer experience, but I think it's an interesting thing. In the earlier 2000s, 2010s, etc., radiologists were deemed to be a dead role, right? We've got AI now that can spot all of these things. Did you know there's more radiologists now, significantly more radiologists now than there was then? And the reason being is AI was used to provide or be able to complete more initial scans and reviews. So people were able to actually get access to radiologists or that capability much easier. And what happened was the number of experts that were then needed because of the large increase in volume exploded. And so I don't know whether we're going to necessarily see that in other roles also, where because you're using AI, you can do more. You can open up the volume, and therefore, even though the humans are there to only review, there's still actually a bigger need for them in that particular workflow. I don't know whether we'll see the same in customer support. You said, it might not be an area of my expertise. I grew up in the contact center. It's where I cut my cloth, right? So I have a big appreciation for a contact center worker, having been one many, many moons ago and spent time running contact centers. So I know how complex that particular role is. I know how difficult it is for a customer service agent. All of these systems, all of these processes. I grew up with the growth of self-service, the growth of the mobile app. Now we have AI and bots, the IVR, etc. All of these things, all of them at every time have threatened to be the end of the contact center. I mean, in the late 90s, the IVR was deemed to be the contact center killer. Guess what? It wasn't. It's now been replaced by something else that for most people is just as bad. I would actually say that your experience is that many people have. I don't remember having any great experiences with AI in the contact center either. And I don't know why, because AI should be and is good enough. And it's got to be something to do with the implementations. I think it's poor implementation of great AI is leading to really bad experiences. So, do I do think the role of the contact center agent has got more complex,
Yes.
regardless. It's got more complex because of all the things that are dropping out. A little bit like the radiologist role, right? The easy ones are spotted. Contact center, the easy ones have been removed. But let's be honest, the easy ones have been getting removed for the past 20 years, either through IVR, mobile application. Like if I want to do a load of stuff with my broadband, I can do an entire troubleshooting from my phone. I don't need
Yeah.
to speak to a person to do that now. But if I had a real billing issue that the AI can't help, that's the time I want to speak to a person. It's because it's complex. There's an edge case which the bot doesn't get because it was never given that context. You can only deal with this, this, and this, not
Right.
these 50 different edge cases. So it's probably not a surprise to those who've seen this industry go through so many transformations and augmentations that AI, and I actively talk about this, I still do not believe that AI is the contact center killer.
Right.
I do believe that there'll be still contact center workers, maybe not quite as many over the next decade. And I think the interesting thing is that the real focus of the contact center with AI right now should not be how it interacts with people. It should be how the hell are we going to interact when we all have our own personal AIs who are acting on our behalf, dealing with things like your mechanic situation, right? That shouldn't that in the next 2 to 5 years will be something that you personally hand over to your AI and they do that on your behalf. Now, that is what the brand should really be thinking about. And whether that is people in the loop there or that is an AI to AI conversation, they're the debates that we're having here right now. Um, because volumes are going to start going through the roof because when you can't be bothered, but your AI agent is always on, it's going to be bothered on your behalf for you. So the whole CX world is about, I think it's probably about to have its biggest
Oh,
transformation
100.
forced upon it, because brands aren't asking for this, but consumers are gonna end up pushing for it. So the whole world of CX, honestly, I think is up for a real big issue. Now, what does that do to the contact center? I can't see how it continues to grow. I
Mhm.
do think it will. I still think it'll take a decade to wriggle out because I know for a fact the people who I know who still call in are not going to be the people who have personal agents. It's actually the people who can't be bothered phoning in that are going to start to use AI on their behalf. And then you will get a slow adoption through the generations. But I still think it'll take at least a decade. So I think the contact center's safe for at least another decade.
That's very interesting and very hopeful. A lot of people th think otherwise. I also think, though, if I find it fascinating, to me, it seems like customer service. When I think of customer service here in the United States, my siblings work for Disney, and that is like one of the pinnacles, at least previously, it had been a pinnacle of customer service. And it was so much about building a relationship with the customer, making memories with them. And I find it hard to believe that we're just ready to give that job over to a machine, you know? I think
Hmm.
that's one of the places that maybe we should say this job is for humans. The machine can help the humans help you. The machine can help the humans find answers faster, get you to schedule your appointment quicker, all
Hmm.
of those kinds of things. But ultimately, it's the job of a human being. And maybe, like you said, it'll be fewer humans working there because they can have so much help from AI. But I see that as one of those places. And even the radiology. I see it. I know that the medical diagnoses are going to improve and already are because of AI. But again, having just gone through my father who passed away with cancer, you want those diagnoses to be explained by people. Even if the
Hmm.
machine can tell you, you want that empathy, the bedside manner, all of that. And so I do think there's still a place for people. Do you think
Hmm.
that there are any places, any jobs that we just have to say right now, like this is the time for us to make these guidelines and decide for ourselves? We have to say this job has to stick with people. It has to be people first. Anything that sticks out to you that you would make, reserved for the people to keep?
Um, I do think, I think every role is going to be augmented with AI just about.
Yeah, augmented
Um,
for sure.
so, I think of healthcare is probably a prime example of where um, the healthcare system needs to be, and I come from the UK, needs to be a hell of a lot more efficient.
100%. Cheaper,
Because,
cheaper.
mhm, has to be more efficient. And people are expensive. Look, many of them are overworked. You know, I think about the UK, it's significant. It's funded incredibly well, but it's still significantly underfunded.
Mhm.
And so we, you know, we do definitely have, you know, healthcare is probably one area where I do believe AI is going to play a very prominent role in drug discovery, in diagnosis, in treatment plans. But I do think that the human side and empathy that can be delivered by a person, you know, by your bedside, over the phone, you know, even on Zoom is should never be replaced by AI. However, the people delivering those messages should be significantly augmented by them. So that would be one particular area where I think it's incredibly prominent. I think you're also likely going to see this in areas like scientific research. I think you're going to see it in the legal space as well. I mean, I'm just playing around with
Legal space for sure. I think it's already happening with
mhm,
and it is a little problematic because I think there are a loss of jobs among lawyers right now, which is
mhm.
easy because they spend the most in the United States to get educated and get their degrees. So that is going to be a little problematic, but I agree. I mean, a lot of the documents and stuff that people consult lawyers for could be done with AI easily. Oh, that.
Yeah, I'm building some of this stuff now. Again, it's a multi-billion dollar industry. You know, I'm building some stuff now, and there is nuances where it still require people, even when you are building some of these tools. A lot of them are still, let's call it, I call it lawyer in the loop.
Mhm.
Right. But you know, the actual documentation or you know, the creation of some of these documents, all of that can initially be done by AI. So there's a huge time save. But I do think there's a level of expertise that I, as a non-legal professional, still require from my legal team who've been there and done that. And again, you know, that might change over the next, you know, 3 to 5 years. It could well do. I mean, you know, there could come a point if AI is, you know, is AI negotiates with AI, right? You know, a contract could look very different when you've got two AIs talking about it, right? You both, you know, you've got one company versus another company's AI, and they basically come to an agreement without a human in place. You know, that document might look very different to today's documents because it's created in a very different way. You know, these are all the things that are likely to happen. Now, you know, if this happens across every industry, and this is why I'm worried, if this happens across every industry, I believe there's a risk of between 10 and 25% of the American population being unemployed
Yeah.
across the next I don't know, 10 years. You know, maybe I'm being generous there, but 10 to 25% of the American population in the next 10 years being unemployed is you know, and that could be, you know, so let's say that even could be globally. That is a problem. That is
Yeah.
a social problem. It's a social catastrophe. One of the things I think I wrote about this the other day as well, and I've said this before, the AI doesn't end humanity because the Terminator's created. It
Right.
ends humanity because of the social unrest and the challenges that occur as a result of those that have and those that have not,
Yes.
which appears over the next decade. And it sounds a bit extreme to say that, but we are blindly walking into massive social challenges. And it doesn't matter how good the technology, we don't need what we're going to do if we get AGI. Like, seriously, what are we going to do if we continue to improve AI to a point if we're not seriously thinking about what people are going to do when we're using AI for more and more things?
I know. And
Like,
it is crazy. I want to say it's crazy that we don't have a plan in place yet because my mother went to college in the 1970s and studied computer science. And in her first class, the teacher said to her, right now you have the control over the coding and everything that has to be done on the computer. But there will come a time when the computer can plug itself back in. And then what are we going to do? So people in the 1970s were already thinking about this. I can attest to the fact that when I worked at Business Week, I covered business schools and I talked to professors at MIT Sloan School of Management who were teamed up with the engineering school to create businesses. And this is more than 20 years ago, almost 30 years ago now. And they were saying to me, look, somebody has to tell you AI is going to take your job. Already then, I think my story said the robots are coming. I
Hmm.
think that was the headline. Already then. So why haven't we come up with a plan? Do you have any
Hmm.
insight into what's taking us so long?
Do you know what? It's because we're all individuals, all individual companies, and everyone is chasing that next quarter. It's like it's head
That's
in the
what I'm worried.
sand because it's not any individual's problem. It's everyone's problem. The issue is the same as what you would see with any potential global challenge, right? Global warming is probably a great example. Yeah, it's not my problem. It's not my problem. It's not my problem. Okay, ocean plastics in the ocean. It's not necessarily an individual's problem, it's everyone's problem. That's it. AI
Right.
is everyone's problem, but it's not anyone's problem. It's not anyone individuals. So, what are we going to do about it? I just think people just need to be made aware. Number one, they need to be aware, and what's going to happen is if the AI impacts continue to happen, we will see protests and challenges, and someone somewhere is going to have to do something. I don't believe universal basic income is the fix.
Oh,
Um,
that's interesting. Why not?
and I'll tell you why. So the benefit of a universal basic income will be swallowed up, right? So if everybody gets the same amount, inflation will go through the roof. Things will start to become very expensive. And that will make it, unless there's regulations around profiteering, etc., it just won't work. I mean, where's the money coming from? To start with, it's like either you make everything free, or you give. I just don't think that's it. I think there's got to be there's got to be a cost somewhere that is associated with using this technology that isn't just going towards the big technology players, right? There's got to be something somewhere that makes um, people a tax break or work, something to do with having people in employment to avoid unnecessary large taxes, right? There's got to be something there. I mean, what real value is individual company profit to the success of humanity?
Hmm.
In comparison, absolutely nothing.
Nothing. Right.
But you know what? There's such an ecosystem around, and it's just I don't know. My view is that the governments of the world, there should be a global discussion
There should
where
be.
everybody just takes a stand, right? This is not about, safe and secure and bias. Everyone's talking about AI and making sure it's safe and secure and let's not include bias and all of these things. Great. That's good, right? But that doesn't fix the wider problem, right?
Biggest
The wider problem is not uh how it's not the use of AI, it's what we're doing with it instead, right? We're not using people, we are not hiring, and that is a much bigger issue for the human race than someone somewhere using a model that discriminated against someone. Okay, right, we're discriminated against a 0.3% of the population, really sorry, but 25% of workers don't have a job. What's the bigger problem here?
Yes.
That's my view, and it's probably easy. It's easy
And
for me
you
to
can
say.
more easily rectify the bias problem, as I understand it. It's how you teach the AI. And I think people are already working on that. I
Hmm.
don't hear enough people having the conversation we're having right now. And honestly, I'm not just worried about myself, and you. I'm worried about our kids and
Yes.
the next generation. What are they going to do for work? And is it even worth it to invest in higher education, which is another big business in the United States, if you can't even get a job and make that money back afterward, which was already a problem? You also talked about the fact that it'll be between haves and have-nots. We've already, kind of painted ourselves into a corner with that as well, because we've already been allowing that to happen before AI went mainstream, and now it's just going to be more dramatic and worse. So I think your idea is very interesting. Who do you think, you've mentioned the governments, who do you think should be in charge of having these conversations and building some sort of ethical, moral code around how we're using AI and what we're doing with it?
Hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, I think you've got to look at the major nations to start with, right? They are the biggest contributors to the global economy, and if you can get the giants of this world to align, and we have done it on other things previously, if we can get the giants to align on this and the right way of approaching it, and it's not about what people do when we've got AGI or ASGI, it's just it's not that. It's how do we ensure that we are still putting people first and not silicon? And so, you've got what's it, the G7, you've got NATO, you've got the European Union, China. You've got big players there that I think just needs, if they're not already, they need to start having the conversation.
Hmm.
Because we will see this will be a global issue as well. This is not an American problem. This is a
No.
this is a global issue, right? If we spent as much time talking about this as we do about things like sovereign AI and data centers, or power
Yeah.
problems, it's like, okay, like why are they making the news? But the impacts of all of this bill, why is that? Why is the impacts, the people impacts, not making more of the news?
That's why I'm doing this podcast, to be honest with you, because I got really terrified. I heard from a pretty prominent platform that does it works with AI for the workforce, and they asked me not to share or write about the way people could collaborate with it because they were trying to sell their product as an eliminator of people, so
Hmm.
companies could cut costs. And that really set off the alarms in my head.
Hmm.
Um, and I think you're right. We have to do something. That was really the driving force behind making Still
Hmm.
Team Human. I think, some of it could be giving these companies and maybe the governments could be the ones to figure out how to do this, incentives to keep people on as the overseers of
Hmm.
the technology, to keep people on in some capacity. Um, and at this moment, I don't think AI, for the most part, especially what people have been investing in AI, is sophisticated enough. As we mentioned, it already screwed up my scheduling. I had to go to a place to actually schedule it, which seems even more old school than what it should have been
Hmm.
5 years ago. Whereas, so there are reasons to keep people, is my point. And maybe we just have to figure out how to incentivize the organizations, these business leaders, to keep the people and really use this as a tool. You mentioned earlier that people are always saying this is like the Industrial Revolution. I thought of the printing press, and you're right, we had a lot more time, but it was also a different kind of technology. We've discussed now the possibility of my AI and your AI doing the podcast on its own or having a negotiation on its own. I don't think any of that other technology reached that platitude. So, I think that's something else we're going to have to grapple with. You're going to have to convince these business leaders that, yeah, you can make more profit and cut costs, but what are you going to do to society? And that makes me, the cynical side of me is like, oh God, we're relying on the Jeff Bezos of the world to be our moral compass here. And that's terrifying. So, anyway.
I agree. No, great points. I think this is certainly hasn't resolved the problem, but at least it's starting to highlight that there is one. And I think anyone who at this point is still on the bandwagon of AI will create more jobs than it displaces, give me some good examples, right? Give me some good examples of where it is going to create more roles that current skill sets have in their wheelhouse, right? Without some kind of plan, right? Because those roles that have been displaced are not something that the people who are in those roles are going to be readily available to complete completely different roles, especially, the slightly older generations who've had a career doing the same thing. You're suddenly going to ask them to be we'll make this more, prompt engineer, right? We know that it's just not going to happen, right? It's even if there were roles, great. Who is going to fill them? And what is the plan to get people trained up to complete them? And how soon do those new roles appear when we can see how quickly other roles are disappearing? And I've read a few posts recently on LinkedIn about older, experienced workers struggling to find their next role. And although it is illegal, it is still very prominent. And again, a lot of it is we've got AI reading CVs, looking at someone's age, and probably discounting it because the company have said, no, we don't want to hire anybody over 30 or 40 or 45 or whatever it is, right? So there are lots of problems. It's not just the young workforce now, it is the older workforce as well. People are generally living longer also. So
Right.
we actually need more jobs. Even
You.
we
Social Security also is running out. So, as someone near 50, I can attest to the fact that there is definitely ageism. Um, and and like that is a big fear. Social Security might not be there when I need it. So, what are you going to do if AI takes all the work and you'll only hire young people? It's really going to be a problem.
Well, at least the current students will be a little bit happier to hear that, as opposed to the booing of AI, that they may well be more inclined to be employed than the old generations. But again, the funny thing is, it's the older generations who have the reasoning capability and the ability to sniff out an issue, a mistake, etc., much better than people who are less experienced. Why? Because they've been there, they've done it. They redlined all of that. They created this. They've done that 6 times, right? That's actually the workforce that's needed to support AI, not the younger workforce who are never going to experience that because an AI is doing instead. So, again, I think it's been a great conversation. I'd be really interested to also hear, future episodes and what other people have got. I wish I had the answers. But I think at this point, just even raising the problem is
This
good
has
enough.
been amazing, actually. I'm really grateful to you for raising the issue and talking about it. Like I said, this is exactly why I did this podcast. Did you have any final takeaway you wanted to share with the audience?
No, just I guess the only takeaway is just be
Hmm.
aware of what's happening, and don't be afraid to have a voice, right? I think too many people they're not as individuals, they're not linking this to a bigger problem.
Right.
And I think there is going to be a bigger problem. And I have been challenging people online who are saying that there is no issue and asking them to explain how there is not going to be an issue here, and what data they have that backs that up, because there's a hell of a lot of data that's telling me and informing me that we are on a ticking time bomb here. And so, I just think awareness, be aware, and join the conversation.
Yes, join the conversation. We hope they all do that. And how can they find you and if somebody's looking for you to work for them, what are the best ways to reach you?
Probably LinkedIn. That's probably my safe place, right? I spend a stupid amount of time doom
That's how
scrolling
I
on
found
LinkedIn.
you.
Doom scrolling on LinkedIn is like other people will just watch videos on TikTok and whatever, and I'm just like, okay, what is going on in the world of work? Uh,
Yes,
and so that's where you're going to find me.
that's great. And there is a lot of anecdotal evidence on LinkedIn proving the points we discussed today. So, because I'm there with you. Well, it was a great pleasure talking to you, Wayne. I really appreciate it. And I hope we can pick up this conversation another time as well. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Francesca, and thanks everybody else.
Thank you.